Tonight, the truth about 911 response times. And we want to share something with you. The woman you're about to hear from is dead.
We went to her a month ago when we found out she was having issues getting police to respond to her business.
Lethargic? I mean, slow? Non-existent? Non-existent.
You know her story. On Good Friday, Trina Kuznick and her husband Michael were executed at their car dealership along Cleveland's East 185th Street. Trina talked to On Your Side investigator Sarah Buttison.
Well, Sarah, she told you that she felt the system just wasn't working.
Robin, Danita, it is a horrible coincidence. Trina was killed as I was putting together our investigation. I felt we had a duty to share her story and her message.
And the glass was just everywhere.
It was a typical Tuesday morning.
I didn't even turn off the alarm. I just called 911.
When Trina Kuznick discovered a burglar.
The fact that he, was brazen enough to come in my building really shook me up.
Tried to break into her business.
So I definitely wanted police here at that time. He's running across the street. Right there.
Her surveillance cameras captured the crime.
Just to watch this over and over, it just infuriates me.
But that was just the beginning.
911, what's your emergency?
After calling 911, hours passed.
So I waited and I waited and I waited.
6 hours after her initial call, an officer finally showed up.
They told me it was a petty crime. To me, this isn't petty.
Then the officer didn't gather any evidence. Not even fingerprints.
There is a reason that for as long as I can remember, police departments have been collecting fingerprints and other kinds of physical evidence.
Jim Bierman is the president of the Police Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to improving policing in America.
The whole purpose of the officers showing up is not only to take the report, but try to at least make sure that somebody is collecting forensic evidence.
Is that good enough?
No, that's not good enough.
Calvin Williams is Cleveland's police chief.
By looking at the records for that day, District 5 was extremely busy with priority assignments. Unfortunately, a burglary without a suspect on scene is a priority 3 assignment.
So how often are residents with those lower priority calls left waiting? On Your Side investigators analyzed 3 years of 911 data.
911, we're
From the time dispatchers answer your call to the time officers arrive, we found it took police at least 6 hours to respond to more than 2,300 calls. One even took more than a day. The average, about an hour and a half.
It's emergency in.
What about when seconds count?
I need police.
My life, my house, my household, my son, all of that was in jeopardy at that moment.
Jane waited 19 minutes for help after she called 911. It was enough time for her abusive ex-boyfriend to kick down her door, grab a steak knife, slash open her left cheek, and escape.
Do you feel safe?
In Cleveland, no. No.
No wonder. Her experience, not unusual. Even in a dire emergency, we found it takes Cleveland police a total of 17 minutes, on average, to respond. Remember, that's from the time a call is answered to the time officers arrive.
If you call 911, do you believe police will respond quickly?
Of course. If you call 911, I believe police are going to respond quickly.
Cleveland 911, do you need police, fire, and ambulance?
The way the chief calculates it, it does appear faster. The Cleveland Police Department starts their clock the moment dispatchers tell police where to go, not when you call 911. Using only that data, it takes officers just 7.5 minutes, not 17.
Is that acceptable?
Well, according to the parameters that we use, it's acceptable because from the time the officer actually receives a call to the time they arrive is under 10 minutes.
But how can he be so sure? We found thousands of flaws in their own database. No one could truly explain.
To not do that begins a process that decays the public's trust and confidence.
We wanted to find out how many 911 calls officers never answered. But 1/3 of data they sent us is missing critical details. In more than 80,000 incidents, the times the dispatcher assigned the calls, blank. And more than $127,000, the place to document when officers arrived, empty.
I don't know any business that would be content with running itself with a lack of data like that.
Do you track when you guys never show up?
Well, again, if we get a call for service, we show up for that call for service.
We hear that all the time, Chief, that people call police and they never show up.
Well, I don't hear that. And again, I talk to people every day.
This is just not me. This is everybody on the street will tell you the same thing. All the business owners will tell you that they just don't bother anymore because it almost feels pointless.
Even though Trina was sure bad guys would return.
But will you call police?
Probably not. What would be the point? Unless someone's shooting at me, then I would, maybe that.
But she never had the chance to decide. 3 weeks later, she was dead. Right at closing time on Good Friday, robbers burst into Mr. Carr's. They shot Trina, her husband Michael, and their Doberman Axel, all in the head. A source says the killers took off with at least 2 cars, all of the titles, keys, and the surveillance system from their used car dealership. Who pulled the trigger? A mystery.
We have a huge problem in this city, a huge problem.
Her final message to police, a warning.
I think that we need to really take a good look at it before our city just crumbles apart.
Again, this was not the story I planned to tell tonight, but I felt I had to. Trina lost her life. I didn't want her to lose her voice.
And you gave her a voice tonight on a very important issue, Sarah.
Thank you, Danita.
Thank you. And we want to know how Cleveland police responded to your calls for help. We've provided something for you. Go to news5cleveland.com. There's a feedback form where you can actually share your experience, and we will read them. Rob?